Good morning. Election Day is just over 2 weeks away, and this morning we have the final report in our three-show series focused on the races in Upper Michigan for the State House of Representatives. It starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, today we have a look at the race in the 109th State House District, which includes all of Alger, Luce, and Schoolcraft counties, and most of Marquette County. First-term Representative Sarah Cambenzi, a Democrat, is opposed by Republican challenger Melody Wagner. I'm glad to welcome both of them to our show this morning. Welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
I'd like to start out by giving each of you a chance to tell us a little more about you. Sarah, I know you're from Marquette and you've served on the City Commission. What else would you like to tell our audience about who you are?
Yeah, born and raised right here in the 109th District. I come from a father who's an engineer and small business owner, and a mother who was a union nurse. I worked for the public schools for 10 years before I stepped up and ran and served my first term as a state representative. So I feel that I come to the table with a lot of experience, plus that local government experience gives me a good perspective in terms of what we need in our communities from Lansing.
Okay. Melody, in looking at your biography, I see you're from K.I. Sawyer currently, and you've been a police officer and a farmer at some points in your life. What else would you like to tell us about you, or about that?
Well, I was born and raised in Northeast Ohio, and that was a family dairy farm my parents owned. And I had a sister, and we worked like men on that farm. It was our only source of income, was milking cows and selling that milk. With that upbringing and that work ethic, it's a physical thing. I continued in physical work. I actually worked for a couple years as a stock brokerage wire operator, and I went from that right into police work. I did give that career up following a family DUI manslaughter, and I chose to raise my family on a farm and milked cows, and I've been farming ever since. Family move took us to Wisconsin on a job, and we came here 6 years ago for a job that was open for 2 years that hadn't been filled within Michigan. And that move wasn't as good as the move to Wisconsin. I found Michigan to be a different animal, as I call it. Sometimes what happened to us was pretty extreme and it was pretty rare, but it was devastating to our family, and it was a fraudulent real estate purchase that involved an undisclosed severe mold contamination. And learning all the entities that were involved, government, private entities, and learning the issues and the problems in Michigan led me to compete for this office.
Well, and is that what brought you into this?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
What do you hope to accomplish by doing this?
I'm accomplishing a lot already.
Okay.
Making bold statements about the facts that are there, especially with our broken government, especially with us, not us personally myself, but Michigan government in Lansing. All three branches are the lowest in the nation.
Okay. Let's talk more about some of those issues.
Sure.
Sarah, what got you involved in politics in the first place, and what keeps you going here looking for a second term?
Yeah, I had a friend ask me to step up more than 10 years ago now to be appointed to the Planning Commission in the city of Marquette, and from there stepped up, ran for the Charter Commission, and eventually served in the City Commission. So it was a friend that said, you know what, with your background and your knowledge, I think you could help out, and if you'd be willing to step up and volunteer your time, I think you'd be good at it.
And what do you see as the issues in this campaign, or what are the issues that you're most interested in dealing with?
I think right now, Michigan is one of the last Midwest states to really come back after the recession. We've seen lower wages. We haven't seen the good jobs back here, and we have quite a bit of people on assistance, about 40% in the UP and 25% statewide, which is a high amount. So, getting people back to work, fixing our infrastructure, lowering healthcare costs, and fully funding our schools so that the next generation will be the skilled workforce we need to attract those businesses. getting away from those big tax breaks for corporations, I think that's where we need to be focused.
We'll talk some more about some of those issues. What do you think are the key issues in this race?
Well, I'd have to echo Sarah on a couple of those. The key ones for me may be just a little bit different. I already mentioned the one, and that's our broken government, and the fact that we are last in the nation for accountability, transparency, and ethics are the main in all three branches of government down there as far as that goes. We do have an issue with the mental health crisis up here. That is huge on my list. Also, it affected our family, and I found out it's a broken system that's been broken a long time, and that would be consumer protection. Those are three of the main ones. The car insurance isn't really car insurance. That's horrendous. That is crippling our youth, and it's a burden, and it's extreme on our elderly right now. Those are four of the main ones that come right to mind.
Okay, we'll talk about some more of those issues and others after we take a break. Back with more after we take a break for just 2 minutes. This morning we're looking at the 109th State House race. On my left is Sarah Cambenzi, on my right is Milda Wagner, Democrat, Republican. They are the two candidates running. Sarah, let's talk about education. You brought that up. What do you think? Are we doing all we can for education? Do we need to put more money behind our schools?
I think what we're doing right now is something that frustrates a lot of people. We're playing a shell game with that money. And because we're not fully funding our colleges and universities out of our general fund anymore, we're taking some of that K-12 money and shifting it over. So if you ask me, I think the money's there. This year we transferred $900 million out of the K-12 budget, and if we would have given that money back to our K-12 schools, we would have seen almost $1,000 increase per pupil per district. That's a big difference. I think that's where we need to get back to.
What are your thoughts on education, Melody? Are we doing enough?
I've got a saying that I grew up with: if it can be fixed with money, you don't have a problem. And I don't think you can fix this with money. I think it's a lot deeper than that. I think our education in Michigan has taken a turn with our culture, in fact, and the use of the cell phone has become so prevalent. And I think our children are actually not thinking and learning to think. They're more told what to think, and they search something, and I just think it has changed our whole culture of education. I also think we need to concentrate on the housing that our kids go home to and the schools that our kids are being taught in. I think those are two big issues we don't look at enough, and because of the situation my family went through, it actually brought me into that area to look at are our kids in healthy housing, and are they in healthy schools?
One of the issues you raised, you say the government is broken. What do you mean by that?
Ethically, the government in Lansing is operating. Michigan operates like no other state in so many areas, which was so difficult for me to understand when I moved here. But to see the lobbyists and lawyers working together practically against what legislators are trying to do, they're taking and tearing apart what our country was even founded on. I mean, half our founding fathers were farmers that went there. They went there to represent the people back home. The rest, most of them were preachers. And they went there on morals and ethics of doing things right for the folks back home. And it has so gone against the core of what America was, of working hard, bringing home a paycheck, and raising your family. And it is now, hey, you go to office and get this bill passed for me, and then you'll have a job in my lobbyist, that firm, when you get out. There's no policing of our legislators, Mr. Ryan. That is a big issue there that I'm trying to say.
Sarah, what are your thoughts on that issue?
Well,
being in the legislature.
Yeah, I think right now we're not focused on the big issues. We seem to be taking up a lot of the small issues. Car insurance is a big one that I hear a lot about. People want to lower their rates. Energy rates is another one. But when we talk about infrastructure and funding our roads, I think we need to come clean and be honest with where Michigan falls in terms of where we're giving out tax breaks. And in 2017, we gave out more tax breaks than revenue we took in. And so the dark store issue, all the corporate tax giveaways, they're adding up. They're almost up to $2 billion a year. And I think when we look at our property taxes, we're middle of the road. Our income taxes are quite low, and our sales taxes we're one of the lowest in the nation. So when we look at what we can do to bring in revenue, there are ways to spread it out more even, rather than our communities having to go out and double our water rates, ask for bonds every year to fix roads or their schools. I think there's things that we can do if both sides would come together and compromise that would alleviate a lot of the burdens that people feel right now, especially in rural communities in the UP.
Let's just pick on one of those things you talked about. What about roads? Michigan has talked a lot about fixing roads, and we've actually put some new financing in place. Have we done enough, and are we making progress?
I don't think we are doing enough. The governor did a 21st century infrastructure task force where we saw that we need $4 billion a year just to keep up with our infrastructure. And the longer that we put it off, the more expensive it is. So, I would say we have to do more. And the responsibility, I think, in Lansing is to make sure that we have the revenue coming in, but that we don't hold it up. We actually get it back to our local communities who know what's best, who have their capital improvement plans, and let them go forward.
Okay. And Melody, what are your thoughts on Michigan's roads and infrastructure? Can we do more? Should we do more?
I'm sorry, there's a statement that comes to mind, and I was just trying not to laugh about it. Somebody said something about the roads. But anyway, another thing about Michigan that's unique, they're the only state in the nation with road commissions. Now, whether or not this affects that our roads are reportedly the worst in the nation might be something to look at. They have their own PAC, and they have road county commissioners, which is separate from other states operating more streamlined and with more modern programs under a public works system within the state. I think if we look at that together with the funding that's available, we would see some results.
Okay.
Oh, the governor, excuse me, I'm sorry. Can
okay.
I finish my thought?
Absolutely, certain.
Governor Snyder had passed in 2011, I believe it was, to absorb those, and I think 6 or 7 of the counties have now absorbed the road commissions, and they are streamlining better in some of those counties. I think that's an area we can look at.
Okay. We've got some more issues to talk about. We'll get to those in just a couple of minutes after we take this break. Once again, our guests this morning are Melody Wagner on my right, Republican challenger, and incumbent Democrat Sarah Cambenzi, the candidates in the 109th State House race. Sarah, let's talk about jobs and economic development. Yeah. What should we be doing in Michigan, especially here in the Upper Peninsula, where in many cases there aren't enough jobs? People are looking for jobs, even though unemployment rates are much lower. And particularly, what about natural resource use? What are your thoughts?
I think it's important growing up here, being responsible users of our natural resources, supplying that product, down to the Great Lakes region for our automotive industry, washers, dryers, everything like that needs to continue and is very important. But I think we also have an opportunity now where, the UP is a destination place, not only to come visit, but to live. And a lot of small businesses, entrepreneurships are starting. And do we have the infrastructure, and do we have the services? One that comes to mind would be, a customs agent at the airport, so that these small businesses can do business around the world and compete at the same time frame as others downstate and in popular regions. So I think there's a lot of room to focus on our roots, what's kind of made us who we are, but also kind of grow that small business industry, the small tech business, people that want to come up here and work from anywhere and really cultivate that.
Okay. Melody, your thoughts on creating jobs and using our natural resources?
Well, there's a lot of jobs out there. There's a lot of help wanted signs up there. As far as our natural resources, they're there. We should be utilizing them. We should be, but just from talking with folks from downstate and from up here, and our environment being like the most important, we've just got so much beauty up here. And downstate wants to protect it as much as we do upstate. The neighbors that I've talked to, different business owners, as long as the permits are there in place, as long as we're doing things according to what both parties agree on, we should move forward, especially in forestry. These fires that we've seen, a lot of folks say, hey, what happens if the UP catches on fire? And they're like, yeah, what happens if the UP catches on fire? We've had wet years, quite often here, and heavy snows, but I would like to see more managed forestry done in both the state and federal lands.
Okay. Let's shift gears. Healthcare is always an issue that people are concerned about. Michigan has been kind of in the forefront with its Medicaid and Healthy Michigan program and providing health insurance coverage for low-income people and children. Are you in favor of maintaining those programs, or what are your general thoughts on providing health care for our citizens?
I think we need to take a route of preventive care. We need to go out of a reactionary mode with health care and go into a preventive method, and especially with what, like I say, I hate to bring it up, but what my family went through. And how many are out there that have illnesses, and what are they from? And when I'm knocking doors and talking to people, well, they'll start telling me about there's a dump over there, and that's why everybody in this town has cancer or whatever. But we really don't find the underlying cause. We have chronic disease up here, and we have a lot of early death. We have a lot of suicide, and we really don't look at the cause. We don't go another route. I would like to go at a preventive route and more of looking at the cause of our illnesses more. Like it's another one. If money could fix it, we wouldn't have a problem. Money's not fixing it. We really need to look at our folks, look at the depression up here, the heartache, the pain. I talk to people every day, and we just need to really be active with our neighbors and friends and family and start caring about each other and really look for preventive methods. Better farming, being a farmer, farming's taken off with the small, different co-op and different farmers raising a lot more stuff now. So that preventive and just eating good, that kind of.
Sarah, your thoughts on health care and what the state is doing, and should we maintain the coverage we have for low-income citizens?
Absolutely. I think the Medicaid expansion for Michigan has done things that we just simply couldn't do with our budget, and knowing that for every dollar we spend, in these programs we get $2 from the federal government, and so it stretches our dollar much farther. I would say, one thing we can look at as a state to control prescription drug costs, would be an appointed commission that, these drug companies have to go to before they're going to just raise the prices. I've been a type 1 diabetic for 31 years, and I know insulin right now, the same insulin I bought, 25 years ago, has gone up about 4,000% in price. And, this is something, if you don't have it, you'll die fairly quickly from. And so just knowing that people are rationing drugs, they can't afford them, it's a real concern. And I think there are things that we can do at the state level while we wait for our federal elected officials to do more to kind of ease this burden.
Okay. We'll be back with some final words from our candidates after we take one more break. Well, before we wrap it up this morning, I would like to give each of our candidates a chance to talk to you and tell you why they think you should support them in this race. Let's start with Melody. Go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Well, I hope folks will look at me as an out-of-the-box type of a candidate. I bring a lot to the table with my background in work ethic, and we need work ethic again. A lot of our folks have third generation not working, and they expect it. I hope to bring that back, along with just to bring the ethics down to Lansing, how we should be operating, how we should care about people and not about the bottom dollar all the time. And I want to reach out to voters that look at me as a Republican when I consider myself a conservative American, and a lot of time that Republican label, there's a lot of anger out there on both sides, and they look at it as two sides, and a lot of folks have given up voting. And I'd like to get those voters back, help them believe in government again, trust again.
Okay. Sarah, why would you like to have the voters send you back to Lansing for another term?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is my experience. Spending 10 years in local government, being on that side and understanding how critical these issues are to resolve the amount of debt that most local communities are faced with because they've had to bond or go out and borrow money to simply fix their roads or upgrade their water systems. Coming from the public schools, spending 10 years working in our education system, as well as having a father that's a small business owner, a mother that was part of a union, I think I've got a broad base of understanding of what most people in the UP want and need, and the ability to compromise and get stuff done. And when I served locally, I think one thing people knew about me is I wasn't afraid to stand up and ask tough questions. I wasn't afraid to work on some of the tough issues, and I think sending me back to Lansing, people will have someone down there that will be a champion for them.
Okay. I'll be back with a final thought in just 60 seconds. That's our report for this morning. I want to remind you that if you want to watch again or recommend the show to someone else, it will be available at uppermichigansource.com. Today's program will be there starting tomorrow afternoon. Thanks to Sarah Cambenzi and Melody Wagner for joining us this morning. That completes our series of 3 shows looking at the Upper Michigan State House races. Now it's up to you to make your choice on November 6th. Thank you for joining us. I hope we'll see you again next Sunday morning.